Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the Madrassah, the show where we discuss issues related to the contemporary Madrassah. To recap our previous shows, we've been looking at issues related to how effective teaching and learning show themselves within the contemporary Shia Madrassah. And what we did was we took as our starting point a number of ayats in the Quran which relate directly to teaching and learning, how teaching is carried out by the knowledge holder, and how learning is engaged with by the individual who wants to learn. We looked at ayats from Surah Baqarah, ayat number 31. We also looked at ayat number 260 from the same surah, from Surah Al-Baqarah, looking at the different teaching styles which are suggested within these ayats. We also looked at ayats from Surah Ali Imran, ayat number 159 to 160, where we identified the disposition of the teacher, how the teacher should act and behave with those who seek to gain knowledge. And so what we did was we created a very firm foundation upon which now we can move on to understanding other aspects of the contemporary Shia Madrassah as it relates to both teaching and learning. So we use that as a bridge to move into issues of professionalism. And what we said is that we as individuals who teach in the madrassah, although we teach in a voluntary manner, so we are unpaid, but nevertheless, with this voluntary spirit must come professionalism. It is not enough for us to say, well, I'm only teaching X amount of hours, I only have X class to teach. There are only X amount of individuals in the class to teach. Why should I be held to certain professional standards? Well, it's clear that our children within the madrassah, they have an experience of education outside of the madrassah in the schools which they attend on a daily basis, from Monday to Friday, and spending between 25 and 30 hours at those individual schools. And our young boys and our young girls are introduced to a manner of teaching which is professional, which has professionalism running through it, because those individuals who teach at schools have gone through a program of study such as the PGCE or a Bachelor's of Education or any of the other qualifications which entitle an individual to be called a qualified teacher. And so they've picked up a number of skills which they utilize in delivering the body of knowledge which they are charged to deliver. That could be in the subject of physics, biology, home economics, sociology, psychology, English language, English literature, whatever. But nevertheless, what is seen and experienced, hopefully, by our young boys and young girls is a manner of teaching which is systematic, which has professionalism running through it, and which also is quality assured. And we should not fool ourselves. We should not become complacent and believe that our young boys and girls in the madrassah are not comparing our teaching of whatever subjects we've been charged to teach with the teaching that they are experiencing at school. They are. This is the reality. And what we find in many occasions is that our young boys and our young girls are dismayed with regard to the teaching that they have experienced. One way we can address this very important issue, an issue which will hopefully re-engage our learners with the life-affirming knowledge which we are hopefully transferring from ourselves to them in a transformative manner. One way of readdressing this is by embracing aspects of professionalism in our practice as teachers within the madrassah. So, what does this professionalism look like? What are its contours? What is its colouring? What does it feel like? How does it manifest itself on the ground within the madrassah? Well, there are a number of ways in which professionalism manifests itself within the contemporary Shia madrassah, and we're going to go through a few of them. But keeping in mind that this list or these topics with regards to professionalism in the contemporary Shia madrassah is not the final say on what is professionalism within the madrassah. So we could say that the list is not a list which can be exhausted. There are many facets and features related to professionalism within the contemporary Shia madrassah, and I, because of lack of time, I'm only going to touch on a few. And I'm hoping that what this will do is will spur on research by yourselves to go away and look at professionalism, the attributes of a professional teacher, what a professional teacher engages with, and then relate it to the madrassah setting. So the first issue is one of planning learning. Planning the learning which we are engaged with facilitating. And you will hear me use this term, facilitator, that we are facilitators, and I will use the term facilitator interchangeably with teacher. In this regard, a facilitator is somebody who opens up avenues for their learners. They aid in the learning process. They place the learner at the center of the process, and in a caring and insightful manner, they guide the learner to a understanding of a body of knowledge which is going to enrich them both spiritually, emotionally, and intellectually. So when we plan our learning and the teaching which we are engaged with, let's take the example of schemes of work. What is a scheme of work? Well, a scheme of work is a detailed outline, let's say a roadmap of what is going to be delivered within a particular period of time. So let's say we have 12 weeks of teaching allotted to us within the madrassah. We are, as professionals, not going just to turn up and open our books and begin reading from the book and believe that the learners will be able to engage with what we are delivering. No. What we are going to do is we're going to plan our delivery. And so maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks before we are going to teach, what we do is we draw up a 12-week plan. And week by week, we outline in detail what we are going to deliver during session 1 of week 1. session 2 of week 2, session 3 of week 3, and so on. And by doing so, we are allowing for knowledge to be built on. We are scaffolding. We are producing a scheme of work which is going to allow us to tailor our delivery to the needs on the ground as we encounter them as reflective teachers. So week 1 could be that we introduce the subject, the module, the study to our learners. And introducing the study to our learners, we allow them to gain an understanding of what they are going to be studying. It's always good for a learner to know what they are going to be studying and what is expected of them. This empowers the learner. And our teaching practice, as professional teachers within the contemporary madrasa, is saturated with professionalism. So we allow the learners to know what they are going to be encountering over the course of the study. We may hand them our scheme of work, and I think this is a very good practice. It is not that we have to keep the scheme of work for ourselves, believing that if we allow the learners to see what we've planned, that they've taken something away from us and we are no longer in charge, underline that word, in charge of the teaching and learning experience. Not at all. Firstly, as professional teachers within the madrasa, we are not in charge of the teaching and learning. We are facilitators of teaching and learning. We engage with our learners in a manner which resonates solidarity. So we become one with our learners, but also maintaining those professional boundaries. And by engendering solidarity with our learners, we allow them to see what they will be studying over the course of the 12 weeks, because they also will be able to plan and plot their study when we empower them with the scheme of work which we have taken time to develop. So handing the scheme of work to the students is a very good practice, but it's more practicable with regards to students' age. So I'm not saying give it to 5-year-olds. What I'm saying is if the students are able to benefit from seeing what is going to be delivered on a week-by-week basis, then we should do so. But you as the teacher, you as the facilitator will know when to do this, with which group to do it, and also with which group not to do it. So the scheme of work outlines for us what we will be delivering on a week-by-week basis. And also, it allows for the madrasa. Imagine if we are not there on a particular week. We have gone for ziyarat, or we've gone for hajj, or we've gone for a nikah, alhamdulillah. And a teacher is asked to stand in for one of our sessions. Now, the teacher, imagine this scenario, is asked to stand in at short notice. The teacher goes into the classroom and has to ask the students, well, what have you done? It's good to ask students what have they done, because it's part of memory recall. But in this sense, I mean, it would signal not good practice. So what we do is, when we produce our lesson plans, our schemes of work, we'll come to lesson plans later, inshallah. When we produce our schemes of work, we give them to the administration of the madrassah so they can be kept on file. So that if at any time a replacement teacher is needed, one of the things which the replacement teacher can do to gain an understanding of what has been delivered previously, apart from asking the students, is look at the scheme of work. And by looking at the scheme of work, the teacher then, the standing teacher, the replacement teacher, can see what has been delivered and now what is required for them to deliver during that session. So the scheme of work is crucial, and it's a good tool in our overall, let's say, teacher's kit for us to use. It allows us to focus on particular topics week by week, as well as it allows us to prepare resources for individual topics on a week by week basis. And I'm sure you can think of many other things, proactive things, which the scheme of work allows for. So one aspect of planning for learning is the scheme of work. Linked to the scheme of work is the lesson plan, or in other words, session plan. You'll hear individuals within your teaching mention the lesson plan, and sometimes they'll mention the session plan, but in reality they're referring to one and the same thing. So the scheme of work is the overall week by week detailed roadmap or plan of what is going to be delivered over that 12-week period. But the lesson plan is much more focused, and the lesson plan is divided into a number of sections, and each section of the lesson or session plan allows us as teachers to tailor and focus our delivery so that we can deliver a body of knowledge to our learners which truly meets their needs on the ground at that moment in time. Because that's what our practice is really all about. Our practice is meeting the needs of the learners as they show themselves on the ground. And we as professional teachers are able to build in a flexibility into our delivery as professional teachers within the madrassah. So a typical lesson plan, as the slides will show, will have your name. They will also have the subject which you're delivering, as well as the date. These are very crucial segments of data that are needed to be present on the lesson plan. Likewise, the lesson plan will have aims and objectives for that individual session only. Aims and objectives. And you may separate them, so you'll have your aims on one line, heading, and your objectives on another line, heading. Or you can put them together, and as you write them out, then you separate them. What are the aims of a lesson plan as they relate to our delivering a body of knowledge? Well, the aims, as they will find themselves in the session or lesson plan, are what we intend to do, what we as teachers intend to do within that session, what we intend to deliver, the body of knowledge we intend to deliver to our learners in that session. That session may only be 30 minutes. Some teachers are very hard pressed, and they're only given 30 minutes. So within that time frame, we signal what we want to deliver to our learners by calling that body of knowledge we want to deliver our aims, what we want to do. So let's say our topic is the first hijrah. The first hijrah. And we know there are two hijrahs. The first hijrah to Abyssinia, to Africa. All those who are African or live in Africa, then this is an issue of pride for us. Those who live in Africa, who have some African origins, the first hijrah was made to Africa, to Abyssinia. So we cheer for this. Whilst the second hijrah was made to Yathrib, later to be called Madinatul Munawwara, the city of lights, or Madinatul Rasulullah, or the city of Allah Azza wa Jal's messenger. So our topic is the first hijrah. Okay? Now, what would be our aims with regard to this topic? Well, one of the aims could be to explain what the word hijrah means to our learners. The other aim could be to explain why the hijrah was made by that early group of Muslims, may Allah Azza wa Jal be pleased with them, from Makkah Sharif to Abyssinia. Another aim could be to explain the relationship which the Muslims were able to develop between themselves and the Negus, the king or the ruler of the Abyssinian empire. And in our attempt to get over these three aims, we may be using different resources. We may be using a PowerPoint presentation, so the students have something visual to look at. We may be using flashcards. We may be using a short video clip taken from the film The Message. And I'm sure you can think of many other resources that you could use to get over these three aims which have just been identified. We'll hold it there. We'll return after the break to continue, inshallah. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.